Well, good morning. It's a wonderful day to be in Matteson, Illinois. I am Nate Sutton, CEO, founder of Sutton Ford and Sutton Auto Team. We started in Jackson, Mississippi, which is where I was born. My dad was actually born in Silver Creek and mom in Ridgeland. We moved to Detroit, Michigan when I was 6 years old. I remember coming up on the train with mom. Dad had gone ahead to earn a master's degree at Wayne State University in Detroit. During the early 60s, African Americans were not allowed to earn a master's degree in the state of Mississippi. So my dad went to Michigan, lived with some family members, earned his master's, was a school teacher, and eventually a school administrator. We lived in Detroit until I graduated from high school at Cass Technical High School, attended Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan, completed a Bachelor of Science in Packaging Engineering. My fiance, Mallory Sutton, and I both graduated from Michigan State on June 10th, my birthday, 1978. And we got married on August 12th, 1978. So it was a busy summer. We like to say we got married on a credit card because we used my mother-in-law's credit card for a honeymoon, which was kind of hilarious because it was an American Express, and I did not know payment was due in full until the bill came. So that was quite the scramble to have to borrow money from your mother-in-law to pay for your honeymoon 30 days after getting married. But we managed, we got it paid off, and it was a great start. And 47 years later, coming up here, we are, of course, still excited about our relationship. In Detroit, there's a school, Cass Technical High School, which had curriculums. You would actually have to apply as if you were applying for a college. You would enter into the curriculum of what you thought your career path was going to be. So my career path, going into 10th grade, and we attended there 10 through 12, was to be a physician or a dentist. And I actually applied for the chemical biological curriculum, which is a pre-med, pre-dental curriculum, completed that curriculum. After graduation, I went to University of Detroit for my freshman year as a pre-med, pre-dental student, taking chemistry and physics and biology, all the prerequisites to become a physician or a dentist. After my freshman year at University of Detroit, I was accepted at Wayne State Medical School summer internship program for aspiring physicians. So I attended a 10-week program at Wayne State Medical School from June through August. We actually had a cadavra. We had science classes every day and an introduction to medical school for a 10-week course. It was pretty fascinating. We had animals to dissect and the whole 9 yards that you do in chemistry and biology. So it was a wonderful program. Transferred to Michigan State because my then girlfriend, now wife, was attending there. While at Michigan State, I continued to pursue a pre-med curriculum and dental curriculum. And as I was ending my sophomore year, I realized I really did not want to continue graduate school, which is 4 more years of medical school or 4 more years of dental school. I was really ready to graduate and make money. So then I decided, what curriculum can I transfer most of the credits I've earned and still graduate in 4 years? So I actually went to the placement office and said, which science curriculum pays the most, where I can get a job, is hiring, because I did not want to be one of those kids that graduate with no job. So they said engineering. And I said, okay, I'll major in engineering. And I was going to major in industrial engineering, but there were they did not have industrial engineering at Michigan State. they actually had packaging engineering, and a lot of the packaging engineering students became industrial engineers because the curriculums were similar in manufacturing. So I switched my major. My senior year, I took 63 credits, but I graduated in 4 years on time. I had a 3.4 in my major GPA. Overall GPA wasn't quite that high, but I survived and started my first job as an industrial engineer with Owens Corning fiberglass. But it's a real backdoor to an engineering major and a real backdoor to corporate America. I always tested high in math, always did very well in entrepreneurial skills, if you will. And some of those exams they give you are preliminary interest exams and questions that they ask. So it was an interesting start to my career. I really thought I was going to be there 40 years. I thought I would start off as an engineer, become a plant manager, follow the manufacturing track, and become a vice president, a corporate vice president. Back in the late 70s, corporations, there was very common for a person to start with a corporation and retire with that company. Nowadays, of course, you have 3 or 4 jobs before you're 30 years old. The first 8-10 years out of college, kids are, if they don't like it, they change jobs. And if the companies nowadays are not as loyal as they were, so you have more layoffs, more corporate mergers. All of that factored into my career choices. So then at Owens Corning Fiberglass, I did extremely well. 3 promotions in 2 years. Was eventually promoted in that 3-year window, to corporate headquarters as a staff engineer. And so we left Newark, Ohio, where my wife and I had our first job, where I had my first job with Owens Corning, to Toledo, Ohio, corporate headquarters. And in Toledo, it was interesting because when we got there, I told my wife, we should start saving your check and live on my check. And she said, well, why? And I said, because we might want to buy a business one day. We just do not know where this corporate track is going to lead us. And so we started saving. Of course, we bought our first house 8 months after we got married in Columbus, Ohio. And we moved to Toledo and bought a larger home. And then we started saving for investment. Probably about 1983, about 5 years out of college, we bought a duplex, which is our first investment property. And this is while at Owens Corning. And then as careers go, I felt that I really did not want to remain in engineering. I wanted to be in sales. So I started inquiring about sales positions, and a friend of mine worked for IBM and said, IBM is a great company and they hire a lot of engineers. So I applied to IBM, received a marketing sales position, eventually became an engineering specialist for them, selling computer-aided design equipment. So I worked at IBM, and while working at IBM, my wife and I accumulated 60 units. So we wound up having 60 apartment units, three buildings, a duplex, a 28 unit, and a 30 unit. And then I shifted my career goals and said, rather than try and retire from corporate America after 40 years at 62, maybe we should buy a lot more real estate. So we set a goal of having 400 units by age 40 and having most of them paid off, working for IBM for 20 years, which gave you lifetime medical, or the ability to have lifetime medical with early retirement, but basically be a real estate guy. In that process, a different friend, a very good friend, John Whitman, and his dad, we were at dinner. I was at dinner, my wife and I were at dinner with John and his wife, and they said, have you ever thought of buying a business? And I said, yes, actually, we're thinking about buying a McDonald's. And they said, really? Well, do you realize if you buy a McDonald's, the teeny boppers you hire never come to work. I said, what do you mean? And he said, you know, the kids, they just don't frequently come to work. They'll just not show because they had a basketball game, which I say overslept, and it's a nightmare to manage. And I said, really? He said, so what do you suggest? And he said, I suggest you buy a car dealership. And I said, really? Car dealers don't make any money. And he laughed and said, well, come and see me. He was actually a Ford dealer, and his family had been a Ford dealer at that time over 40 years. And so I went up to meet with him, and he showed me around his dealership, and we discussed finances and how you purchase a dealership. And he invited me to come work for him. So I left IBM shortly after that, about a year after that, and with the goal of pursuing our retail automotive career.